Good day, everyone. Welcome, and thanks for joining us today for this Semtech presentation of the blueriver AV Manager, a new freely available software tool designed to harness the power of software-defined video over Ethernet for professional audio and video applications. My name is Gareth Hayward. I'm the Senior Video Market Manager at Semtech Corporation and your moderator for today's webinar. Joining me is my colleague Helgi Sigurdsson, Senior Product Manager, and also the Principal Architect of the blueriver AV Manager software that we're going to learn about in today's webinar. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to save any questions that you may have for a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. So please use the dedicated Q&A box to enter any questions throughout the presentation. Pretty straightforward agenda for today. We'll go through a quick overview of blueriver technology and the SDVOE Alliance. Helgi will then introduce us to the blueriver Manager, AV Manager tool itself, followed by a live demo and how the tool can be customized, and then wrapping up with a Q&A session to round out today's webinar. First off, I'm going to give you an overview of Semtech's blueriver technology for proAV and the Software-Defined Video over Ethernet Alliance, or SDVOE Alliance. So the blueriver platform is Semtech's award-winning technology for AV over IP, which is the fastest growing segment of the professional AV signal distribution market. As the core technology that powers SDVOE, blueriver has been demonstrated on numerous occasions to be the only AV over IP technology that can truly provide matrix switch-like performance. It delivers pristine 4K resolution video with imperceptible latency, along with multi-channel audio and control signals such as USB, infrared, and consumer electronic control. All this over standard 10 gigabit Ethernet networks and using a common control application programming interface, or API. So since its launch, the SDVOE Alliance has come to exist as a fully independent nonprofit organization with a mandate that's set by its 6 steering members. And that would be Blackbox, Christie, IDK, Netgear, Semtech, and zeevee. The Alliance as a group is dedicated to a common goal and a shared vision, which is to establish a standard-based approach to AV signal distribution without any compromises. And there's quite a few different approaches to AV over IP in the proAV space, but SDVOE is really focused on those applications where there's no compromise on performance, whether that be latency or image quality, really foundational requirements for the proAV industry. And the Alliance works to provide education, reference materials to help designers, integrators, and end users leverage this technology to build lower cost solutions with the flexibility of Ethernet, delivering value through software-defined applications. And there's 3 main elements that comprise an SDVOE solution. First, there's the physical endpoints themselves, which integrate the blueriver chipset. Second, common off-the-shelf 10 gigabit Ethernet. And then finally, a control application that leverages that common SDVOE API. And it's this third component that will be the focus of today's presentation. All right, let's take a look at a typical SDVOE system and the applications that can be enabled through software. So this diagram on the right here shows a system with SDVOE transmitters on the left, connected to AV sources. And then there's SDVOE receivers on the right, connected to various different display technologies. And at the center of this system is a standard 10 gigabit Ethernet switch. At the most basic level, the system provides switching and distribution of AV content via this Ethernet network to provide the same functionality you'd expect from a legacy matrix switch-based system. However, on top of this capability, there's a lot of powerful features and additional functionality that's built in to those SDVOE endpoints themselves. So the blueriver chipset includes an advanced video processing engine that can be used to crop and scale images for video wall applications, as I'm showing there on the top right of this diagram. And since each receiver has access to all video content via that network switch, it can subscribe to multiple video sources simultaneously. And again, using the power of the integrated AV processor, composite multiple video sources onto a single display for multi-viewer applications, which is shown there at the bottom right. With integrated USB connectivity on every blueriver device, KVM applications can be supported, including integration with third-party KVM control software, to enable sophisticated remote desktop applications. And all this put together really reduces system costs and the reliance on bespoke hardware solutions. And SDVOE systems can be reconfigured using software, providing simple AV switching one day to full-featured video wall, multi-viewer, and KVM applications the next. And what ties all this together? The SDVOE API, which is common to all blueriver powered products. The API provides a dedicated command set for a wide range of typical proAV applications, and it abstracts the user experience from the hardware platform itself. This common API approach ensures interoperability with the installed base of SDVOE products out there across multiple manufacturers and brands, giving end users much more flexibility and more choice, of course. So with that, I'm now going to hand things over to Helgi, who's going to answer the question, what is blueriver AV Manager? Helgi.
Hi, Gareth. Thank you and welcome everyone. So yeah, what is blueriver AV Manager? blueriver AV Manager is many things, but first and foremost, it's a free software application from Semtech to manage and control SDVOE and other blueriver devices. But before we can really talk about what the blueriver AV Manager is, I think we need to take a step maybe back and say, like, why the blueriver AV Manager in the first place, right? So why did Semtech, a semiconductor company, decide to develop an application like blueriver AV Manager? Now, the answer is, you know, a little complicated, but in a nutshell, Semtech is a founding member of the SDVOE Alliance, and it's greatly vested in the Alliance. And Semtech determined that by developing a sample application like the blueriver AV Manager, make it freely available, would strengthen this SDVOE ecosystem of manufacturers, AV installers, consultants, and users that are embracing the interoperability of SDVOE. On top of that, I mean, we have this SDVOE API, which basically provides the power of the SDVOE platform. But, you know, and there are long and lengthy manuals on how to use the API. But we also figured that what is a better documentation than an actual freely available application that just demonstrates how to use the API itself. So code by example that is available. And then, of course, you know, other things like, you know, once you have the code, then you see how to code against the API. Naturally, this makes it possible for more people to do it, right? And it grows that ecosystem. And then, of course, by having this example, it makes the actual anyone who wants to develop an actual targeted user experience software, by having a starting point like the blueriver AV Manager, it's basically faster. Shorter time it takes. So when we started looking into what we wanted to put into this application, I mean, of course, we wanted to have it something that looked good. I mean, and it was intuitive. We wanted something that was easy to just understand what you're doing in there, and also easy to use. And also, since we decided this was an application that we were going to make available as a source code, it was going to be very easy. It needed to be from the ground up designed as a white label application. That means it can be used as is, but if you want to make it your own, put your own logo on it or your own colors, it has to be very simple to do that. Of course, language is important. If your target market is in another language than English, it has to be easy to add another language. Of course, given it has to work with every SDVOE device out there. And what for me, what was important, it had to work on a large variety of devices. And that includes, you know, desktop PCs, tablets, Chromebooks. And therefore, because of that tablet and Chromebook aspect, it had to be designed with touch control in mind. Of course, focused feature set, we cannot do everything. We wanted to keep it small in size. And of course, easy access and easy to install. So taking all of this together, I mean, the first decision that we made is that, yeah, what makes sense here is let's make this as a web app. That gives us a large variety of devices this can work with, right? But then once we decided, okay, it's a web app, but how should we implement it? Well, after thinking about it a little bit, we settled down on JavaScript and decided the decision why we settled on JavaScript is because JavaScript is an extremely popular language out there. It's so well known globally among developers. And, as like we see here on a graph, this comes from an developer ecosystem survey from this year. 40,000 respondents, and it turns out that almost 70% of all software developers globally today, they have touched JavaScript over the last 12 months. So it's important, since we are going to make the source code available, that is written in a programming language that is well known. We looked into TypeScript, very interesting programming language that is derived from JavaScript, but we decided on JavaScript. So another thing is that we decided to write this entirely in JavaScript, both the front end and the back end. Web application is a front end and a back end. And that also supports smaller development teams. Having the ability to use the same programming language for the back end and the front end makes it's a one single small development team that can do both parts. For the front end, we decided to go with the React Web Framework. So, again, so JavaScript most popular, 70% of all programmers worldwide that know it or have touched it over the last 12 months. Almost 40% of all programmers actually say that it's their primary programming language. Now, with regards to React, again, when we picked a framework, decided, let's go with something that is common and popular. And so it turns out that of all the user interface or GUI framework for JavaScript, React is the most popular today. So when we take a look at the blueriver AV Manager application itself, so how it is architectured, I mean, this is a good graph to understand that. It shows the user on top and it shows the SDVOE devices on the bottom. So on top, you have the user, the one who is the operator, the user that is using the software. They are interacting with this through a web GUI or user interface. And that is the front end, this thing that draws those pages. And how this is implemented is that we basically have that blueriver AV Manager front end, and it creates this user experience by relying on the React JavaScript framework library. This component, the front end of the blueriver AV Manager, communicates to the back end of the blueriver AV Manager, and the back end of the blueriver AV Manager is implemented for running within a Node.js. Node.js is this thing that allows JavaScript pages to operate outside of a web browser. And what we did there is that we basically implemented this backend that runs inside the Node.js as just another API. We implemented basically as the blueriver AV Manager API. This in turn calls on the SDVOE API. This is available from the SDVOE website today, and that one in turn talks to the SDVOE devices. So right from the get-go, you can see how it is easy to customize this. So for example, because if you want to swap out the user interface, you want to completely change the user interface, you want to use another framework, it's very easy. You can keep the backend as is. You just have to replace the React library with another framework library. Also, if you already want to expand the backend, let's say you want a backend that not only is controlling SDVOE devices, but other types of endpoints, well, you can expand that backend. You can add another component that runs inside the Node.js by the side of the blueriver AV Manager API. And then, of course, if you already have a backend, you already have a control system for something else, it's about then embedding or including or adding this blueriver AV Manager inside your own implementation.
Good. So it sounds like there's a great architecture and standard-based framework behind the blueriver AV Manager software tool. So Helgi, how would someone get access to this software?
That's a very good question. You know, there's one thing to having, there's no point in having a software that is, if you cannot get access to it. To get access to it, you go straight to the Semtech website, semtech.com. That is your starting point. So you go into semtech.com. If it is not on the front page, just use the search box there, right on the front page, and search for blueriver AV Manager, and that will bring you to the blueriver AV Manager landing page. The link to that landing page is here on screen. In that landing page, of course, you have a short video introduction of the application. You can download there a quick start guide, but the key there is also you have download buttons there to download this thing, this application. So this is a web application, so it means you have to install it somewhere on a computer that is on your network, and then you can access that with a browser running on another device located on the same network. So we offer two installers. You can install this on a Windows computer or on a Linux computer, and also you have a dedicated download link for the source repository. So if you want to get actual source, you want to get the whole source code, you can do that. So you click on one of those links, and now what happens is that you are brought to a portal called My Semtech. My Semtech is a customer portal that Semtech uses to provide its customers with access to documentation, firmware, application software, etc. So the first thing, so after you click, for example, you want to download the Windows version. So you brought to My Semtech, and here, if you don't have a My Semtech account, you have to register for it. So you have to fill in this form. So you either log in if you have an existing account, My Semtech account, or you register. Once you have done that, you either sign in or you register, and then you are inside the My Semtech. So there are two things you have to do there. So first is that you have to select the view here, select all documents, and then basically you have to inside the search box, just type blueriver AV Manager, and what you will then see is that you will see all the instances here. So you will see maybe multiple copies of the same thing, and that is because how My Semtech works is assigned to part numbers. The part numbers are the blueriver AV chipsets, but ignore that. You just have to select here what you want, and then you click on that download button or send me the selected documents. And what that trigger is an email that will hit your inbox, and it's an email from My Semtech. And there is a download link, and you just simply click on that download link, and you will download, for example, this Windows installer. You have that now, you have downloaded it, so what do you do next? Well, you just have to run that installer, right? So you run that installer, and you follow the instructions. That's as plain as simple. And it's a simple installer. The only thing it asks you about is it offers you a default location on your computer where you want to install it. You can change that if you want, or leave it as is. It will also ask you for a port number, because since you're installing something like a web server, in order to communicate with a web server from a browser, it requires a port number. Default port number is the standard port 80. Of course, if you're something else running on this computer that is already using port 80, you can change that to something else, like 8080 as an example. So you install, and then what you do is that you launch a browser, right? You can launch a browser on the same computer where you install the software, or you can launch a browser on another computer running on the same network. And basically what you have to do is that you simply, in that browser, doesn't matter what browser it is it Chrome, is it Safari, Mozilla, it doesn't matter. You just type in the IP address of the computer where you install it. If you're installing it, if you're doing this on the same computer, you can simply type localhost or 127.0.0.1, if I remember correctly. Either way, so you type in that, and then in the browser appears the front page of the blueriver AV Manager application, the home screen.
Great. I highly recommend signing up to the My Semtech portal. It's a great resource to access all Semtech documentation and support tools. So we've learned about how blueriver AV Manager was developed, how to get access to it, and how to install it. But there's nothing like a live demo to really get a good idea of how this tool works. So take it away, Helgi.
Sure. So of course, we are still like I'm still here from home, but what I'm going to do is that I'm going to connect to a blueriver system with SDVOE devices that is located in our office here. So let me see so I'm going to launch that here. So this is what we have. So this is blueriver AV Manager. So this is the front page. So we have two modes of operation in this application. So there is this monitoring mode where you have the ability to view and monitor status of individual devices. You have the operate mode where you basically operate routing between devices. And then you have a configure mode where you can go in there and configure individual devices. This is a home screen. You get always to this page by clicking here on the home. This is the navigation panel to switch between. You can go from up to the home screen and go to different modes, or you can just go into the use the navigation panel. So let's start with going into the monitoring mode. So if I click here monitoring, so what do I see here? Let me collapse this bar here. So right now I see all the SDVOE endpoints in that system. So they are labeled as, they have names, they have functions, I have transmitters, I have receivers, they have various types of chipset. That doesn't really matter, but this is the state. Each and every device is reported here like a device card. So for example, let's take a look at one of them. So for example, there's this transmitter here called Apple TV2. This indicates actually that it's connected to an Apple TV. So let me take a look into that. So I'm in the monitoring mode. To get more detailed information, I click on that device card. So here I get more information about this guy. So I see some information about the identity, the capability of this endpoint. I see, I can see that this, it's running on a DHCP. I see his IP address, etc. I currently see here that it's outputting two streams. I see that it's actually streaming video out on a multicast address here, and it's actually also streaming out the HDMI and audio from that source, this Apple TV source. And here I see a lot of other information. I see, for example, the video, the input video. This is a 4K resolution that is being streamed out here. And I see the audio, on the other hand, is a dual stereo audio at the 48,000 kilohertz. So I see all the information about this device, right? So that is the monitoring mode. To go back then, so let's go a quick. I can click on any other device to get this state and information about the device. Let's go to the operate mode quickly. And this is where we control routing between. So transmitters connected to the sources, they are shown here on the left-hand side. Receivers connected to displays or monitor, they are shown here on top. So if you take a look at that, where is it here? The Apple TV2 here. So as you can see, it's currently streaming to two devices. I can stop. It's not streaming anywhere, or I can start it. So by clicking here on intersection here, it's basically telling me here that this thing here is now streaming to this device here. And if I go back, I click on this guy, I go back to the monitoring page, and I actually can see, yes, it's streaming here on this address, streaming to wall 1 top left. And guess what? That is exactly what is here. If I say the stream is also going to send to this guy here, and I can click on this, you can actually see here that, it's streaming to wall 1 top left and wall 1 top right. These sending out to two destinations. Similarly, in this view, I can click on the receiver, get some information here, and I can see that, yeah, it's subscribing, it's receiving video from the Apple TV2. So that is basically the operate mode, so I can take any source and send a video to it to to a destination. And we can do this for video, we can do it for audio, USB, etc. Now, let's go into the configure mode. And this is where I can change the behavior and configuration of a device. So let's take a look at this Apple TV 2 device again. So I click on it again. As you see, I'm in this configuration mode, I'm having a slightly different view here. So for example, I can change the device name here. I can change the pictogram. I can, if I wanted to, this is currently working with an automatic IP address or DHCP address. I could, if I wanted to, change that to a static address. I'm not going to do that here right now. I can modify its behavior in terms of, do I also want it to send out a scaled video stream in addition to the original video stream? I can configure that here. And I can set up the audio configuration. I can configure the RS-232 ports, etc. So everything I do in order to configure the device. This is typically what you do. You do this typically when you're setting up a device. You initially configure it. And just to see how this is simple, like for example, device name. Let's say I just want to put a space here. So it's Apple TV number 2. And you see, it's right away changed here. And if it's an Apple TV, it's not a game console. So let's give it a proper pictogram here. And I get the toaster symbol here. And as you can see here now, it has changed, the pictogram has changed. One more thing I would like to show you here is how so in this operate mode that we were in earlier, you saw all the sources and destination. And this is one-to-one or one-to-many. This is kind of a matrix switching operation that we are having here. But let me show you, we talked about earlier here how blueriver and SDVOE supports also advanced modes like video wall and multi-view. And let me just demonstrate very quickly here how to set up a video wall and then stream a video to that video wall. So we go into the configure screen here. And I'm going to go into this wall editor here, and I'm going to create a new wall, right? So I'm going to create, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a 2x2 wall. All right, I select next. I'm going to give the wall a name. Let's just call it a webinar. That's what we are doing today. I'm going to have this as a fast switch wall. I'm going to have it work so that it will keep the aspect ratio of the source. I'm going to have it running. I think I'm going to run those screens. I know these monitors support 4K, but let's run this right now as a 1920 1080 60 Hz on each and every display, right? And for bezels, I'm going to say about 10 pixels. This is something you will do. You can adjust this accordingly, exactly according to the exact size of the bezels. I'm just going to put them as a 10 pixels here. And then I click the next. And now I'm going to basically say, okay, what are the devices or receiver I want to use for this wall? So I'm basically just drag them in here. I select. So I'm going to use those wall to the display. So I'm going to select this top left here for this guy. I'm going to select the top right here for here. Then I'm going to go here, bottom left here. Oops, that's in the way. I'm going to select here, wall to bottom right, select this guy. So I have selected those devices that are forming the wall. I'm going to save this. Okay. The last step that I need is I created this wall layout. I'm going to activate it. I'm going to select, I'm going to confirm, and I'm going to go back into the operate mode. And look what you see here. We have now this new wall. So instead of what we had here, we had individual devices. They have now been grouped together as a wall. And so what I can do, I take the Apple TV and I basically will route a stream to it. So that if I want to switch it to another destination, switch another source to it, I do it like that. So that is how that works. So, and if I want to stop using that wall, I can unload it and I will just bring the devices back. So that is kind of what we have here.
Very nice user interface, Helgi. Super simple. Intuitive. Let's explore a bit more about the concept of white labeling. What can developers expect in terms of customization?
Okay, yeah, we talked about that earlier. Like blueriver AV Manager was designed from the ground up as a white label application. So that means it can be customized. But what kind of a customization is possible? Let's take a look. So first of all, I mean, reskinning. You know, you have this application, you download it from the Semtech website or from my Semtech, and what you get is the blueriver AV Manager with the Semtech logo, right? So of course you can use it as is, but someone who wants to, as an AV installer who is actually using the software at an end user side, they might maybe want to just rebrand it with their name instead, avinstaller.inc or something, right? And so that is reskinning. So change replace the branding, replace the logo with their own logo, replace the application colors with their own color scheme, and of course, renaming the application to something else, my AV Manager as an example, rather than the blueriver AV Manager. So that's reskinning. And this is all possible to do. This is just for a simple manipulation of some configuration files. Another type of customization is like this application that we have here, blueriver AV Manager, out of the box. If you download it, it supports the GUI. You can switch between English and French. Why French? Well, this was developed in Canada, and you know, Canada is we are a bilingual country, English and French. So those are the two languages. But maybe you want to install it, and you know, you want to use this in Japan. So it's going to be important that you have this user interface in Japanese. And it's very easy to either add Japanese as a language or swap out one of the existing languages for Japanese. So that is another type of customization. And this is supported in this blueriver AV Manager. And it's very simple to do. Other types of customization, enable security certificate. So as you probably saw in the demo, I was just using an IP address. So unsecure connection. But if you are, and that is probably fine in many installation on local area network, but sometimes you need to have it more secure. And that means you have to enable a security certificate or configure a security certificate. And now you're going to be communicating this over encrypted communication channel rather than over HTTPS instead of HTTP. And that is, again, simply going into a configuration file and adding that security certificate that you will be getting from your IT department typically. But there's other customers, and also, of course, PWA, a progressive web app. You know, this application was designed as a progressive web app. What does that mean? A progressive web app is basically something that it allows you to, rather than run this from a browser, if you enable it as a progressive web app, you can actually download like a installation, not an installation, as a launch icon onto your desktop. And that's ideal for tablets. If you want to run this from a tablet, typically you want to have an icon somewhere where you click on in order to get up the application. You don't want to go on a tablet, you want to open up a browser and type in, you just want to click on an application icon. And if you enable PWA, that is exactly what you get. Yeah, initially you have to launch it as a browser, but then you say, okay, download, and then you get the download icon on your tablet or on your desktop, and that is PWA. Again, it's a customization option. It's a customization. But then on top of that, there's additional things you can do, right? Because we provide the full source code, you can now also start changing the functionality. Or you don't like the UI, you want to add something to the user interface, you want to change it, go ahead. All the source code is there. Make it your own. And or you want to take this and take the back end and embed it into something you already have, go ahead. This is just possible. This is for you to do, right? Just to demonstrate how simple and easy it is to customize, I captured a couple of videos here, Gareth, before this webinar here, I captured a couple of videos that shows the first 2 points: how to reskin the app and how to change or add other languages to it. So if you don't mind, Gary, I would like to actually to show you those couple of videos and show the audience here those couple of videos.
Sure, that'd be great.
So let's first take a look at the video that I captured here, that shows reskinning. And so here it is. So this is our Semtech blueriver AV manager. And so the first thing I'm going to do here is that I'm going to browse to the location where the application was installed. So this was installed using the default path. So this goes into user, app data, roaming, Semtech, blueriver AV manager. And the first step is to go into the README file. And in the README file, there's a lot of information there. And for example, information how to reskin the app. So the first thing is, okay, how to change the logo. Well, changing the logo is about changing a file with another file. It's as simple as that. So logo.sh, this is here the file that we are using. We basically are swapping that logo file for another file. I'm renaming the old file and bringing the new file and renaming that to logo.svg. And then basically what the only thing I have to do after that, after I replaced, I have to just refresh the page, and there it is. Now, it's a little bit more involved changing the colors, but again, you go into the README file, you look into what you have to do. In this case, what you have to do is you have to add a configuration file into the data directory. So we have an example configuration file located there, and we just copy it into the data directory. The first thing we do here is that we rename it to config.conf, right? Then we edit it. We don't need the top part. This is more like for debugging, troubleshooting. This is also explained how to use in the README file. So what we are going to do is we are going to change the title name here to My Manager instead of blueriver AV Manager. We are going to put the app header as a custom AV manager. And then to change the colors, I'm actually going to use this HTML color codes website to select the color. I'm going to pick a red here to match the Canadian flag. And I copy that as a primary color, okay? Then I'm going to select a slightly lighter color here for the background. I'm going to copy that as the secondary color, copy that into this configuration file, save the configuration file. Now, in addition, I cannot just refresh the page. I actually have to restart the application. So to do that, you go into the Task Manager services, you restart the two services that are involved here, blueriver API and blueriver Manager services. You restart them, refresh the page, and here you are. So that is all. So very, very simple to do. Like I said, it's about going into the README file, looking into the instructions, how to change the application, change the logo, and how to change the colors, and just follow those instructions. The second example that I have here is something on how to add another language or change language. So again, just like previously, it's about going into the folder where you installed the application, and you start with opening up the README file. And the README file will here have a section on how to add a new language. We go into README. We go into the open up the README file, and we go here. We edit it. We're going to look for it. And this is, okay, how to update text. So we have to basically add new directories with the text, with the string. So, okay, we go into the locals. As you can see, there are two folders there, English and French. And these files that are here, these files contain all the strings that are in the application, all the text. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to add two languages. I'm going to add Icelandic, and this is the code for Icelandic is IS, and I'm going to add Chinese. Code for that is CH. Once I've done this, adding these two folders, once I go into here, you see Icelandic and Chinese are available for me now as new languages. Of course, I haven't entered any Icelandic or Chinese yet, but they are now available options. So let's go into the Icelandic. I'm going to copy these strings here, these files, into the Icelandic folder. And let me modify here just the home page. So the monitoring, I'm going to change that to monitoring English. I'm going to call, in Icelandic, it would be skoða, which looks look at, for example. So we will type that. For the operate, let's change that to vinna or work. And then for configuring, we have changed that to Breda or change. We save that, and then we are just going to refresh the page, select an Icelandic, and as you can see, the new strings are here. So this is how it is easy to change, to add a language. Of course, what is left for you to is to translate every string there is. I mean, that is some work to do, but it just shows how easy it is to add another language. So like we have covered here, there are different levels of customization that can be done with the blueriver manager. It's the branding, skinning, translating to another language, adding a security certificate, or enable a PWA, enable the application to run as a progressive web app. This is all very simple, easy to do. This is about just opening up the README file, read the instructions, and do. So everybody can do this. Now, other types of customization will require some software skills. So, for example, if you plan to rebuild the application or redistribute the app, you're going to have to have some general knowledge of JavaScript and general scripting. And it's beneficial to have some idea of what the GitLab source repository is. But it's relatively simple. You don't need advanced software skills. But of course, as soon as you want to start changing the functionality of the app, change the user interface or adding something to it, that will require then some fluency in JavaScript, understanding the React framework, understanding Node.js if you want to planning to do change it to the backend, and of course the SDVOE API. If you're going to be adding some functionality, and you need to know the SDVOE API as well. So that kind of summarizes it. So in summary, the blueriver manager is a simple application. It's an easy to use application. It has targeted use cases, and it is, in general for all blueriver or SDVOE distribution systems. It is designed from the ground up as a white label application to be used as is, or can be rebranded or redistributed or further customized. And it's written entirely in JavaScript, both the front end and the back end, implemented in the same programming language. This is really, truly a good thing for small development teams. So they don't have to worry about the back end developed in one language and the front end in another. Small development team can own both the front end and the back end. And finally, of course, it's freely available for download, freely accessible, application software installers, and all of the source code.
Thanks for this, Helgi. Amazing to see how this tool has been designed to be really simple yet very powerful. And it's also offering an open platform for software developers to quickly and easily customize it to the desired user experience or the end application. Okay, we have quite a few questions in the Q&A. Just a reminder, you can still use the Q&A box to enter questions for Helgi at this time. I noticed that many of the questions are around what the tool is doing today as is. I just want to remind everyone this tool is fully customizable. So if it doesn't do what you're asking, you can certainly modify it very easily to do so. So first question is, Helgi, can you send 4 sources to the wall using the manager, 1 for each quadrant? Well, I guess it's no longer a wall once you do that, but.
So a definition of a wall is that you have many screens or monitors operating as one single display surface, right? And each monitor driven by a single endpoint. So by definition, a wall is always something that displays a single source onto, a wall that consists of many displays. I think maybe what they're asking here is a multi-view, where we have a single display or single a receiver connected to one single display or TV, receiving multiple sources and is somehow compositing it into a a quad view or showing multiple sources at the same time. That is multi-view. Yes, and this blueriver manager, I didn't have the time to demonstrate that here, but absolutely, this blueriver manager also supports multi-view. So standard matrix routing, video walls, and multi-view is all part of the blueriver manager.
Yeah, and again, it could be, you could customize the tool to create what's called a quadrant view. So if you do have 4 independent displays and you want to see 4 sources on them, you could create your own tile called quadrant view. It's fully customizable. Next question, are the bezel adjustments in pixels, millimeters, or inches?
They are in display pixels. So they are defined as pixels, the size of the display that you're using. So typically what you're doing when you're estimating bezels is that you put the displays together, right? And then you take a ruler and you know the pixel density of your display, right? Every display has some kind of a dot per inch or something like that. That gives you an indication how many pixels there are in a centimeter, per centimeter or per inch. And in order to estimate how many pixels that bezel is, you simply you put the displays together, you with a ruler, you just measure, you measure the size of that bezel, right? And you take that number, then let's say you got, I don't know, you got like 4 millimeters, and then you look, or 6 millimeters, and then you look up how many pixels you based on the display spec, how many pixels there are per centimeters, and then there's a simple division to get the number that you're looking for. That is what you enter in.
Yeah, and again, you could customize the tool, so you could even add display types with known bezel sizes if you choose to.
Absolutely,
totally customizable.
That would actually be a great customization for someone who knows, for example, they only work with Samsung TVs and they always have this. You just add that into the UI. So
yeah. Okay, related to the first question, kind of, is there a way to switch from video wall to individual displays without losing the video wall assignment?
Say that again, I'm not so sure I fully understand.
Is there a way to switch from video wall to individual displays without losing the video wall assignment? I think the answer is yes, because once you've saved a video wall layout, it's always can be recalled. So you can go into matrix mode and then back to video wall just by recalling saved video walls.
Yeah, right? So for sure. So you create a video wall, right? Let's say this example I showed you before, we took 4 receivers, we used that to create a video wall, right? So now it's operating as a video. What you can then do is that let's say you want to have the bottom left display, you want to break that out of that video matrix. You want to have that display something else. You want to have these top left, top right, and bottom right still part of the video wall, but you want that bottom left to be something else. It's very easy to do. You just have to go into the configuration mode, select that receiver that represents the bottom left, and put it into another mode. Put it into a Genlock mode, or put it into that fast switch, or even on a multi-view, right? The remaining 3 will be still part of that video wall, but now you have broken out the bottom left as a freestanding display that you can treat as a different destination. So yes, you can do that.
Great. Okay. Can you change the receiver mode on the fly in the wall, i.e. change from Genlock wall to fast switch on 3RX and multi-viewer on 1RX, similar to what you just kind of said?
Yeah, so you cannot do that on the fly. So how this tool is constructed is part of that fast switch versus Genlock wall is a part of the layer that we use to represent the wall. If you wanted to really switch, the wall from a fast switch wall to a Genlock wall, to do that, you would maybe create another layout for the wall that, a Genlock version and and you switch between those two, you could do that. But this is not a very typical use case though. Just so if you think about an end user installation, I mean, for a wall, typically is that the walls are mounted on, the displays are mounted on a wall, right? That you're not changing, after they're mounted, you're not changing the resolution. You typically configure that wall once and for all. The wall is mounted for 9 displays or 16 displays or 4 displays. You set that up during deployment and configuration of that system. If you want to, so it's not typical you want to switch that from fast switch mode to genlock mode, but you can do that, but you would have to have two different layouts.
Right. Okay. We've got lots more questions. Tiles on the GUI, I assume this means the device tiles on the GUI. Are they sortable in order? Like, will they be automatically ordered by device name or IP address, or can you manually arrange the tiles?
There are actually a few sorting options that are possible in that view. There is what I was showing here. What it was being. I'm not so sure how it was arranged. It may have been by device type, but you can sort by device type. You can sort by device name, and you can also sort by status. Meaning, you probably noticed that in these device cards, some of them showed just white, other had this yellow, yellow edge around it, and others were like even red. Yellow means that, so white means device is fully functional, is actually working, is streaming video. Yellow means it's fully functional, it's ready, but it's not currently streaming. And red actually means it's not connected to a source or not connected to a display. And you can sort on that status, like, is it connected, is it working, is it not working? You can sort on a device name, and you can sort on a device type. Is it transmitter, receiver, or transceiver?
Great. Okay. Is the manager compatible with all firmware versions?
That's a good question. It's actually compatible with the latest firmware as of blueriver chipset. They come in typically. Someone who knows about Semtech blueriver chipset that is used by SDVOE and all SDVOE devices, they come in two flavors. There's the NT2000, NT1000 series, and there is the AVP series. The AV manager was coded against the latest firmware at the time, which was for the AVP 1.3, and for the FPGA, for the NT2000, was basically actually FPGA based instead of true ASIC like the AVP, is 4.1. It's also actually coded against, so it's what matters though here more is the API version rather than the firmware version. It's coded against the API version 3.3. So the blueriver AV manager requires SDVOE API version 3.3 or later.
Okay, great. Still more questions. What about a macOS or iOS version?
When you say macOS or iOS, I'm assuming, so for sure you would be able to run. So we do not offer an installer to install onto a Mac computer. So to install the software, you need to install it either on a Windows computer or a Linux computer. However, you can use it from a Mac computer. You can, for example, on a Mac laptop, it's connected to the same network. You can launch the browser and connect just to the computer where you install the software on. What we do not support is, and you're saying like iOS, so for tablets, we absolutely support to run this on an iPad, but you don't install the software on an iPad. You use the software then from an iPad. You install it on a Windows computer, and then you use an iPad to control. And that is definitely working, yes. Yeah, same with an Android tablet. What we do not support in terms of mobile devices are phones. We looked into that, and we realized the geometry of the screen of a phone is smaller. We realized we would need two different UIs to support a phone and a tablet. And we decided, let someone else do that. Someone download the blueriver AV manager and you do that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, good point. Thanks, Helgi. Can the manager control SDVOE systems with devices that may have different firmware versions? I guess it's related to the previous question.
Yeah, so I mean, the system I was using here for live demo actually had devices running on different firmware versions, right? I had their AVP devices running 1.3 firmware, and I had also NT2000 devices running there on 4.1 firmware, 4.1 dot, I don't remember what exactly it is. There, our firmwares have 4 digits, right? We were running there on 13 dot something something and 4.1 dot something something. But so yes, that is definitely possible. There's the one I should point out. There's one thing that we should point out, that specifically for the video wall, how blueriver how we manage walls. We are taking use of the new video wall. So we add SDVOE API 3.3 that was released this summer, included a new calls to manage walls, right? We are using those API calls by the blueriver AV manager. And that is only supported with the AVP chipset. So that is one thing I should point out, that for wall, you need ASIC chipset running 1.3 or later for wall implementation.
Right. Yeah, good point. We've still got quite a few questions, so we'll try and burn through these if we can. The recently explained legend that for the device status that you explained, the different colors, is that available in documentation?
Yeah, so the quick start guide explains this, talks about this, mentions what these colors are, what they mean.
Yeah.
You probably know, anyone who has here that has downloaded the quick start guide, I suggest anyone who's on this call today, I actually recommend you all go to the Semtech website and you go to the blueriver AV Manager landing page and you download the quick start guide for yourself. It gives some additional information here, but that is covered in the quick start guide.
Okay, good. Is Windows Server platforms supported?
Yes.
Great, thank you. When you use an iPad for control, it needs to connect to a PC running the manager. That's a question. So the manager runs as a server.
Correct. So you are installing where you install the software, you are actually installing that node. What gets installed, this installer that we have that installs the blueriver AV Manager, it also installs Node.js, right? Which is a component. Think about Node.js is a web server by definition. So yes, so you are installing a web server on that computer. Yes.
Got it. Hopefully this is going to wrap things up soon. So can the PWA create an iPhone or iPad icon like for a tablet?
Not on a phone, on a tablet, yes. So if you're having an iPad tablet, yes. So there are two things. You can either, for the first time you connect, you use a browser on your tablet and you type in the IP address, and then what you have is that there is a little symbol there in the upper right corner where you say, download, and it will download, and now you will have a launch icon on your iPad that you just from now on you click. The other way of doing it is that if you're running this on another computer, there's a way to actually display a QR code, and you use the camera of your tablet to take a picture of the QR code, and that gives you a web link that you can then use to configure the PWA. But you have basically the very first time on a tablet you have to go through a browser, but then after that you use the application launch icon.
Got it. Yeah, and just to clarify, all the source code is available. So if the tool doesn't do any, something that you want it to do, you are fully free to customize it and add functionality whichever way you want. And you can share that via the SDVOE community if you choose. That would be great to get people modifying and enhancing the tool.
That is exactly what the tool is for.
Yeah.
This is a starting point for people who want to develop their own. They have some experience in mind. You have a starting point now.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're very tight on time here, so that just about wraps things up. There are more Q&A which we'll handle offline. Thanks again, Helgi. This was a fantastic presentation. And thanks, of course, to everyone for joining us today to discover the power, the simplicity of the blueriver AV Manager. Both myself and Helgi can be contacted at the coordinates shown here. Please reach out to your local Semtech representative if you want to know more about our blueriver solutions. And thank you and have a wonderful day.